Hello and welcome back to anyone and everyone watching. This is Racing with Joe, back with another NASCAR video. Started 2 new series here on the channel recently. One is my weekly Silly Season with Joe, news and recaps, and the other is my best part-time drivers of 2022 series. So make sure to go check those out if you haven't already. But today, I'm going to be talking about the current state of the Ford development program in NASCAR. In a motorsport with only 3 manufacturers, NASCAR has a leg up over its main domestic competition, IndyCar, which only has support from Honda and Chevrolet, but is certainly well behind its international competition such as F1 with its 10 constructors. Given that, it would seem likely that in NASCAR, Chevy, Ford, and Toyota would all more or less be balanced out in regard to performance, as each has a large range of teams and drivers to choose from. And right now in the Cup Series, this is true for the most part. Despite Chevrolet's 13-year-long streak in manufacturers' championships from 2003 to 2015, largely thanks to the lethal combo of Jimmie Johnson and Jeff Gordon, since 2019, each of the 3 manufacturers have won a drivers' and manufacturers' championship. Still, every season, or for every couple of seasons straight, one seems to fall behind the rest, or one is completely dominant, mostly due to the success of their flagship teams. For example, in 2016 and through 2019, Chevrolet fell off its throne because of significant changes at Hendrick Motorsports, which saw its entire roster of 7-time champ Jimmie Johnson, Jeff Gordon, Dale Jr., and Kasey Kahne all retire within 5 years of each other. And most recently, and through this past season, Toyota has been away from their prime, as Joe Gibbs Racing's Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr. have not performed nearly as well in the 2020s as they did in the late 2010s. And only this year did their newest driver Christopher Bell score more than 1 win in a season. On top of that, ever since Michael Waltrip Racing ceased operations at the end of 2015, Toyota really only supported Joe Gibbs Racing and their 1 or 2 car satellite teams such as Furniture Row and Levine Family Racing until the creation of 2311 Racing in 2021. Meanwhile, Chevy and Ford have always each supplied multiple top teams. But as far as each manufacturer's driver development programs go, it's a completely different story. In recent history, Chevrolet has never struggled to find top talent, with powerhouse teams such as GMS Racing in the Truck Series and Junior Motorsports and Xfinity. And despite its lack of Cup opportunities, Toyota's driver development has arguably been the best, with a direct pipeline from Kyle Busch Motorsports and Trucks to Joe Gibbs Racing themselves in Xfinity. This coming season, KBM will no longer compete under the Toyota banner, but in my opinion, that will be of little or no concern to Toyota, as the Tricon Garage team will just about take their place, even signing Toyota's top truck prospect Corey Heim for 2023. It is instead the manufacturer which has been a part of NASCAR since its very beginning, and as the reigning Cup Series drivers champion, Ford, this development program has rather unnoticeably fallen into complete ruins. As we speak, their Cup roster stands quite strong overall, as even with Stewart Haas Racing's recent issues, Penske has maintained its top-level competitiveness, and RFK Racing is trending upwards. And as recently as 2020, their Xfinity program was small but mighty, with both Chase Briscoe and Cole Custer winning multiple races for Stewart Haas, and Austin Cindric taking home that year's championship for Penske. But now, with all 3 of the aforementioned drivers in Cup, we'll get to Cole Custer soon actually, there has been left a huge gap for Ford to fill in the Xfinity Series. Heading into 2022, it could have been argued before that Ford had fallen behind in Xfinity, but now they were in shambles. With their last top prospect of Cindric now competing for Penske and Cup, they were left with the Riley Herbst at Stewart Haas and Ryan Sieg for his family team, I guess. And what about Penske? Well, they just straight up didn't come back. Due to either a lack of funding, no solid drivers, or both, they would just not attempt a single race all season long. In the case of Riley Herbst and Ryan Sieg, and dear God, I almost forgot, SS Greenlight Racing, I'll just give a quick breakdown for those who don't keep up with the Xfinity Series too much. Starting with Riley, a guy well known as a pay-to-race driver and who only managed to score 2 ARCA wins and 51 starts for Joe Gibbs Racing, let's just say he's not performed up to Stewart Haas Racing expectations. In his 3rd year in the Xfinity Series and 2nd at SHR, the 98 car that Chase Briscoe won 9 races with in 2020, Herbst has won 0 races, and despite a respectable amount of top 5s and top 10s, has led basically no laps, and he's crashed out a lot, with 7 DNFs related to crashing in 2021 and 5 in 2022. So by no means is he a consistent driver that just doesn't win a lot like a Matt Crafton or Eric Almirola. Then we have Ryan Sieg, who I don't care, should have at least won 1 race by now and is staggering 301 series starts for his own team that is perfectly capable of contending for wins on super speedways and at least a few regular oval races every season. And lastly, SS Greenlight Racing, who apparently has a technical alliance with SHR now, but results-wise, you sure couldn't tell. Besides Cole Custer winning at Auto Club and having a couple other great runs in his part-time effort for the team this year, their main drivers, Joe Graff Jr. and David Starr, are more or less backmarkers on a weekly basis, with Graff only netting 2 top 10s in his 2 near full-time seasons with them, and Starr putting up a best finish of 11th, coupled with 4 DNQs this year. In my eyes, the best possible scenario for any of the current Ford Xfinity drivers is Herbst to maybe cup racing one day for a smaller team because of the funding he'd bring, and maybe the rest can latch on with Rick Ware Racing or Live Fast Motorsports part-time if they're lucky, but it's highly likely they won't be. So, needless to say, Ford had beyond nothing going for them in Xfinity this past season. But at least in the short term, that's not going to affect them that much, as their Cup teams are looking pretty stable. The only driver looking to be on the verge of immediate retirement being Kevin Harvick, but I'm pretty sure SHR could stand to downsize to 3 cars for a year, and in fact, it'd probably benefit them. And for 2023, the SHR Xfinity team will be taking in the now Cup Series bust Cole Custer, who will likely be going back to his winning ways in the series right away, as before his miserable Cup campaign, he won 9 races and finished runner-up in points in back-to-back years for the team. Again, all good in the short term, but does Cole actually have a promising future in Cup, a winner if he's able to return full-time? We'll just have to wait and see, but still, he remains the only driver in Ford's Xfinity development program that has even the slightest chance of becoming a future Cup Series star. Looking into the long term is where Ford is really screwed unless they make some serious changes, as their truck development program is nearly as disastrous as their one in the Xfinity Series. In 3 to 5 years' time, Kevin Harvick will surely be gone, as will most likely be Eric Almirola and Brad Keselowski, and Ford surely will be looking to get one of their own drivers to fill those shoes. But who will be capable of doing that? This past season, their situation looked even more pitiful than going into this coming season, as in 2022, not just their good teams, but their only teams were Front Row Motorsports and David Gilliland Racing. Zane Smith with Front Row won the championship, so they got that on their side, and with him returning to the team in 2023, he will continue to be Ford's top development driver in general. Without a doubt, I think Zane can have a bright future in Cup, but that's just one driver. He will likely not be ready to take over for Harvick come 2024 unless some bonehead decides to rush him up and skip the Xfinity Series altogether. That left out of all their teams in Xfinity and trucks just Tanner and Taylor Gray and Hailie Deegan as the remaining candidates. And where do I begin? Well, Taylor Gray looks to have a promising career ahead of him as he tallied up 3 National ARCA Series wins and 5 additional East and West Series wins. But he's still only 17 and not some instant generational talent like Ty Gibbs, so not by any stretch is he going to be Cup ready in under 5 years. His older brother Tanner has completely underperformed so far in the Truck Series, still winless and never having finished better than 14th in the standings after 3 full-time seasons with DGR. And of course, Hailie Deegan. At one point, it was looking like she was going to be a real threat with 3 West Series wins over the course of 2 years, but after accomplishing nothing in a full-time ARCA effort and only recording 3 top 10s in her 2 truck seasons, it's looking pretty clear at this point she will never be a top-level driver in Cup, and will likely never reach the top division of stock car racing at all unless another bonehead at Ford wants to replicate the Danica Patrick experience. Thankfully for Ford, with 2023 on the horizon, out went DGR, now rebranded the Tricon Garage under the Toyota banner, and in came ThorSport. Well, thankfully for the short term at least, because ThorSport is a powerhouse in the truck series with the likes of Ty Majeski, Ben Rose, Matt Crafton, and now Hailie Deegan again. But that's the problem, they're a truck team, not exactly a team of up-and-coming young drivers. I'm not going to go on about Deegan anymore. All I can say is she better at least qualify for the playoffs next season if she wants to justify her position in NASCAR at all. But then we have Majeski and Rose, both very solid and top-tier truck drivers, but they're not necessarily Cup caliber either. First with Majeski, at 28 years old and despite being known as one of the best late-model racers in the country, he has relatively little NASCAR experience. He only made a select amount of Xfinity starts in the infamously Rec Pro number 60 car for Roush back in 2017-2018, before having to rebuild his career through the ARCA and truck ranks in the following years. And only this year, in 2022, did he actually have a standout season, winning 2 races and finishing 4th in points. Then with the Rhodes, even though he won the 2021 Truck Championship, he has the opposite issue as Majeski, as I would argue that now going into his 8th full-time truck season, he has too much experience. That sounds weird at first, but I would put Rhodes in the same category as guys like Brandon Jones and Justin Allgaier. They're great assets for lower series teams, but it's pretty clear they're already maxed out where they are. I can back that up by saying Rose has never won more than 2 races in the season, and even after 6 years straight of top 10 finishes in the standings, that is simply not enough for promotion, as every year there are simply much more deserving drivers. Take, for example, John Hunter Nemechek, a driver who took a step back after a disappointing Cup season to go back and race in the Truck Series. Right away, he went lights out, winning 5 races in the same year Rose won the championship. Well, in trucks and Xfinity, team owners as well as most fans can see through the whole one race decides a champion system and gather that even though Nemechek came in 3rd overall in 2021, he showed more potential than Rhodes all season long, with better stats all around the board, albeit he was a bit inconsistent at times. That's what owners in the Xfinity and Cup Series see as potential, because the slight inconsistency can be fixed with experience, but the pure winning talent that so far Rhodes has not shown cannot be. So, to reiterate, Majeski and Rhodes are absolutely doing what's necessary to prove they belong in one of the best teams in the Truck Series, but they're not so great when it comes to fixing Ford's driver development problem. And lastly, of course, is Matt Crafton, a career-long truck driver, a 3-time champion, and a guy who's likely close to retirement. Even during his prime, I would say he mirrored my description of Ben Rhodes, because in his whopping 22 full-time seasons, only in one did he ever win more than 2 races, and could have been considered a breakout. That was when he won 6 times in 2015, but at that point in his career, he was already past the age of really getting noticed by Cup teams, and already been labeled as a good instead of a great driver for too many years. So now, entering 2023, in a motorsport with only 3 manufacturers, in which Chevrolet can claim the likes of Chandler Smith, Sam Mayer, Nick Sanchez, Carson Hocevar, Raja Carruth, Christian Eckes, Daniel Dye, even Josh Berry, and Toyota has Corey Heim, Taylor Gray, John Hunter Nemechek, Sammy Smith, Kaz Gralla, and William Sauerleik. All Ford can answer with is Zane Smith, and maybe Cole Custer. By now, if you didn't see it already, hopefully I painted the picture pretty clearly in regard to the absolute dumpster fire of Ford's current driver development program. I'm honestly not sure what they'll do to better it, but regardless, while their Cup roster will remain top-notch in the short term, they've set themselves up for utter failure in the long term by putting all their marbles into paid drivers and well-marketable drivers, rather than into the most talented drivers. And unless they plan on buying out future Cup stars from Chevy and Toyota, come around 5 years from now, even their Cup program might become a shadow of its former self. But that's all I've got to say. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you again to all my new subscribers. In just a little over a month of making this channel, I'm already up to around 90 right now. So let's shoot for 100 by the end of this week. Also, let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are about the current state of Ford and NASCAR. I'd love to read all your opinions. But that's it for today, so until next time, peace out.